Hello, supporters of Minneapolis Public Schools. Here's what happened at this week's Committee of the Whole board meeting. Okay, I'm going to take a little different approach this week because I want to just sort of guide us through some things that happened in this board meeting that I think are really exciting and they're different than our norm. So I don't know if it's because our district is broke or if it's because we're dysfunctional. We might be both of those things. Or if it's because we're siloed, or if it's because we're big. I don't know why. We kind of do something on repeat when it comes to decisions, which is like we're siloed, right? So like someone over here in academics is making a decision. Someone over here in communications is doing something. Teachers are over here in this school doing another thing and another thing and another thing. Every once in a while, those things all work together, but very often we're kind of just separated, right? So I'm going to tell you a little story. Capital improvements in our city, in our school district, usually take 5 years to plan. So if you're seeing construction on a public school building, the odds are that the process for that started 3, 4, 5 years ago. Getting the funding. By the way, capital improvement funding comes from a different pile than like our daily use stuff, right? So you can't pay teachers' salaries out of capital funding. They're two different buckets. So those plans, as you can imagine, getting a plan for a building, making sure your codes happen, then you have to get your bids from your preferred contractors, and then you start the process. And all of that has been much slower with pandemic, inflation, construction costs rising, all of those things, right? It was very common for a building to be having work done or something to have happened that we've all sort of forgotten about. Oh, I forgot they ordered that 3 years ago, right? And so this is the case from this school board meeting where they were discussing playgrounds. 3 playground contracts that this person who's been working very hard on the contracts were ready to be bid out on. And along comes a group of kiddos from Ella Baker Global Studies School. And they come forward to the board meeting and they say, our friend can't play on that playground. It's not accessible for her. And then the board has a conversation about it. There's a lot of talk. There's this other thing called ADA, so the American Disabilities Act, right? All of the playgrounds that we're getting ready to put in, these 3 new playgrounds, they do sort of pass that very bare bones layer. And they're not truly accessible for every student. So there was a long, hard conversation with this person who'd spent years getting these contracts ready, looking at the way a playground fits in all of our buildings that are different sizes and shapes. By the way, all of this is more complex in a city than it is like, in a suburban area where things are laid out and have more space, right? So he's done all this work. And then these families are over here saying, but like, let's not build something for 30 years that kids like my kid can't play on. And the board did something which I haven't seen this board do before in this same way. And I really want to say props to this school board for this meeting in particular, because they asked themselves questions that are above the moment, which was like, as a board, do we want to continue to invest in playgrounds that are not truly accessible? Do we want to think about this more holistically? And they pressed pause on a project, even though might mean that playground might not get built at those 3 schools next year. And they're really going to go back and think of it as a governance issue. And what they really said, what do we believe about playgrounds? What do we know about playgrounds? And I just want to say that group of families and students who showed up and talked about that, and this board, I think, sometimes we do work all the time and it seems very ordinary. And lots of ordinary things happen in that board meeting in those rooms. Trust me, I know, I listen to them. Some of it you're just kind of like, oh. But this was one of those long conversations where I felt something sort of transformational happening both to this board and to the way we start to think about decisions in our district. And I think we need that. I think we need more of that. And so this board voted to hold off on those 3 contracts and to ask themselves more questions. And so we might not get those playgrounds next year, but hopefully we do get some policies about what kinds of playgrounds we want to build across our city and some thought about who we serve and what our policy is. And is good enough for almost everyone our standard? Or is every single child getting the education they need our standard? And I think that this board meeting was pretty special in that. So thanks so much for paying attention, for watching, for learning with me. I can't wait to see what happens with these playgrounds. It might be a bit, but I'll keep you posted. Bye.